Welcome to the Sunday special on Top Med Talk. It's a potpourri of our favourite longer pieces, ideal for downloading and enjoying when you have a little bit more time. Top Med Talk. So I'm Monty Mythen, Editor-in-Chief of Top Med Talk, and I'm joined by Professor Mike Grocott. Also got with me two colleagues from Australia. But Paul, in your lecture yesterday in the morning, we were reflecting on perioperative medicine and the shape of the development of anaesthesia in the world. You showed a slide of the International Perioperative Medicine Curriculum Group. Could you just expand on that a little bit, and then we'll bring in our special guest?
So I think there's been a lot of talk by different anaesthesia groups around the world, and it's inevitable that perioperative medicine will play a large part of our specialty into the future. And I guess with my travels and some of the research I've been doing, I was able to be in contact with like-minded people who believe in and are working on teaching or education in perioperative medicine. So the international group that is really, I get a group of like-minded people at this point, still sort of semi-formal, but the aim is to develop an agreed curriculum of what perioperative medicine education and training should be, and that's really aligning the current, different parts of the world where people are interested in it. Obviously here in the UK, but equally in Australia, New Zealand, also through Asia and probably Africa, and of course into the US and Canada and so on.
And that group at the moment doesn't have any formal structure or governance structures or authority of any form. As you say, it's like-minded individuals who are just trying to ensure that whatever perioperative medicine grows into, it doesn't wander off in different directions.
Exactly. It would be rather silly, really, if people have a different view of what it entails and how and what should be taught. So we, I think, all believe that the first thing we should agree on is a curriculum of what perioperative medicine training should be. And I think once we've got to the point now where I think we've got an agreed curriculum. Once we've got that, then the next series of decisions are around, well, how should that be overseen? Is there a governance structure required? What sort of content would be produced and who'd produce it? And if outside providers were wanting to provide a teaching material that, I guess, reflected that curriculum, would it require some sort of endorsement or otherwise? And it's those sort of more governance, administrative components that we're moving into now.
So from the Royal College of Anaesthetists perspective, Mike, we had our curriculum remodelled, and work done by Chris Carey resulted in us having GMC approval in June 2016 of what we're calling our perioperative medicine curriculum if you do your FRCA. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I guess we in the UK have taken a particular approach in that we took the view that the perioperative medicine curriculum was already in large part, there were a few additions and a few tweaks, but it's already in large part embedded in our anaesthesia training, and that all anaesthetists, anaesthesiologists should be competent in perioperative medicine. So in many ways what Chris did was move around and relabel elements that were already part of our training. Now, obviously there are different views internationally as to how that should be done.
So, and in parallel, there's been the development of a MOOC, a collaborative endeavour led by UCL, by Dr. David Walker and colleagues in particular, which has been very, very popular. So that's some learning that's out there that's free at point of access if you abide by the epochs that are laid down for the free access. But the other major development was master's programs, and Dr. David Walker, again from the UCL perspective, has led that as one of the masters that are available, and that's been very, very popular. And he's been working closely, Paul, with your institution and your special guest you brought along. Would you like to introduce your David Walker?
Well, yes, I'd like to introduce Dr. Joel Symmons, who actually has been or headed up, first of all, the development of our university-based master's program in perioperative medicine, and now is working with David Walker and others to try and develop potential collaborations and linkages so that there's a sort of a shared qualification that could run across different universities or other educational institutions. So I might let Joel talk about it further.
So Joel, welcome back. Great to have you here again. So you guys have led the way. I don't know if there was any educational endeavour that predated the masters in Monash or the early courses you did. Tell us a bit more about that, and then tell us where you think we're going in the future.
Well, really, the first perioperative medicine curriculum was set up in 2009 when Monash and the Alfred commenced the perioperative medicine short course. That has evolved. We're now in our 10th year of our short course, roughly about 200 participants annually worldwide. It's a totally online course with an optional day component. We commenced our master's program 45 years ago, which was the first master's in perioperative medicine in the world, and developed the curriculum from that. That master's program is also now run totally online. We used to have direct contact days, but it's run totally online with reading material, with videos, with online collaborative components as well. And that's really grown from strength to strength. What David Walker and I have realized over the last few years is that different institutions approach perioperative medicine from very different angles. The angle that UCL has approached their perioperative masters is different from that of Monash. And what we realize is that we actually really need a hybrid of both of those curricula to develop a true perioperative medicine curriculum.
Excellent. And there is a global audience, I think, for that. And there are, as you say, other master's programs that have been launched. And, the ambition is to get the education as broad-based as possible. Now, masters are, in some people's view, relatively expensive. They're extremely high value for money, but not necessarily accessible to the whole world. If we're working in the Australian economy or the UK economy, which broadly speaking is similar to many of the economies you've referred to, that's not really going to open it up to the whole world. Is there any way that we can make the learning more accessible? I'm not sure we can change the economics of getting the degrees from our universities, but can we make the knowledge base more accessible?
Yes, I definitely think we can. We need to develop courses which are more economically accessible to the majority of the population, and that could be done under a structure like an international board for perioperative medicine, which would make not only make education accessible, but would also ensure that what is being taught in perioperative medicine is similar throughout all regions of the world.
Now, one of the risks there is we label it in some way and it becomes an international diploma, certificate, whatever it is, and then the suggestion is that somebody does a version of that in a relatively uncontrolled way and says they're now a qualified practitioner.
So
how do we keep a lid on that?
We'd have to be very careful with that and pitch it more at a level for education acquisition in perioperative medicine. Differently from what Mike had said with what your college has done, the College of Anaesthetists in Australia is actually of the view our training is 2 years shorter than yours, and we didn't feel that our trainees had all the skills to be called perioperative medicine specialists. So what our college is doing is having a two-tiered system where people who have their anaesthetic fellowship from our college will be called perioperative practitioners, and then there will be a 2-year fellowship which is optional, which can be done to get a formal perioperative medicine fellowship, and those people would be called perioperative medicine specialists.
Okay,
and our college is working on that at the moment, and we should have a fellowship in the next 4 to 5 years. Fantastic.
So, Mike, the way you described what we have now of people who are going to get the FRCA, become a fellow of the Royal College of Anaesthetists, that is or isn't the plan?
So it is the plan, and I'm
not extending training. We think
we don't think it will extend training
because we're 2 years longer already.
There are folk that could do. Some people are already choosing to do perioperative medicine fellowships, and therefore clearly mark themselves out as someone who's going to be leading a service, and this will be a major part of their career. And this isn't really an educationalist comment; it's more, how the profession develops. We took the view, and certainly I hold the view, that if you start to divide people into those that do and those that don't, the path feels like it leads to schism. So in the same way as we've seen in critical care, where you get a faculty and then the faculty develops a momentum of its own and naturally becomes an independent specialty, and you're probably 20 years further down the road in Australia than we are in that regard in the UK, that carries great risk for anaesthesia, in my view, as a profession. And actually, the alternative route is to say we're all anaesthetists and perioperative physicians, and in a way that guards against the risk of what's coming, which is non-physician anaesthesia providers and technology, which will eat up some of the technological role of anaesthetists.
But it sounds like we're going to end up in the same place, though, Mike. People who get their FRCA without extending their training will be perioperative practitioners.
Correct.
The people who decide to do a fellowship en route and do the advanced training will be the specialists, as Joel just described. Is that?
So we'll end up in the same place in that regard, but the people who don't do that in Australia in 30 years' time may find themselves more professionally vulnerable than those that do.
Did you see it that way, Paul?
Well, I think those concerns are real, and I think this is part of the conversation everybody should be having around the world, certainly anaesthetists or anaesthesiologists, because we need to get a better sense of where our future lies as a profession, and it probably lies in a range of directions. And I think there is room for that flexibility, but without it being in any way restrictive or damaging or creating a schism in the process. I think the important part of it is for everybody to continue the conversation so that we're aware of where we're going, what are the risks and benefits of it, how can we justify certain decisions. And I think if we are engaged in the process, we can obviously help steer it in the right directions, focusing around what's best for patient care and so on. And I think the future will be fine. If in fact, after several years we feel that there are some issues that are arising that we hadn't foreseen, then I think we can always change course again. We can always make adjustments to what we're trying to achieve.
I think what we have to be mindful of is that we've looked at all of this through a slightly different prism. Because I think, Paul, you referred to it yesterday, you did some other things in medicine before you took a side entrance into anaesthesia. Is that right?
At least in part, yes.
and Mike, I think you're what the Americans would call triple boarded. Is that right?
So I also did some other things, both medical and non-medical, before getting into anaesthesia.
I did 4 or 5 years of general medical and specialist medical things. So we actually had quite a lot of general medical training, which makes us slightly lose sight of the fact that you might need those few extra years. And in the USA, when I was working there, if you did subspecialist anaesthesia training, it's a 3-year program that flash to bang, and does not include much of that general medical training. So that's what you're addressing in your plans, Joel, is that right?
Correct. The Australian and New Zealand College of Anaesthetists is of the view that we don't own perioperative medicine, and we are modelling perioperative medicine on our Faculty of Pain Medicine, where the college is just really an umbrella body for a whole lot of other professional organisations like the College of Physicians or the College of Surgeons. So the aim of the College of Anaesthetists is to really oversee perioperative medicine education and qualifications, but people will be able to come into perioperative medicine from numerous directions. So
you're on course to have a new faculty?
No, we're not developing a faculty at this stage, just a fellowship. The College Council stopped short of developing a faculty at this moment in time, but that might change in the future.
Where do you think we are on that one, Mike?
So I think our ambition is similar in that we hope to be the home of perioperative medicine within medicine more broadly. So if you were a surgeon or a primary care specialist and you wanted to do that, you would come to us, to the Royal College of Anaesthetists, to be credentialed and probably have associate membership. But our current view, I think, certainly my personal view, is that that all anaesthetists should have that training as part of their core training. So you would become an anaesthetist and perioperative physician.
Over the horizon, because the discussion at the Royal College of Anaesthetists started before we got there, including discussions about a potential name change or at least a strapline change. Now, if the majority of departments around the world, like yours is, Paul, and ours is, and I don't know what yours is, Mike, ends up being called anaesthesia and perioperative medicine, does the college eventually follow that path? Or the colleges follow that path, or is it irrelevant, like you said yesterday about the London School of Economics?
No, I think it is relevant. I think it's important. I think if we don't, we risk others choosing to declare that actually that they are the home of perioperative medicine, and I think that would be a great shame for our specialty and probably the wrong thing to happen overall for medicine. I think the timing, I think there's a lot of support, certainly in the UK at the moment, from our surgical colleagues. I think they understand the need for this. And the comment about London School of Economics was you don't lose your core brand by adding additional brands. So the London School of Economics is actually called the London School of Economics and Political Science, but we all know it as the LSE.
So the Royal College of Anaesthetists and Perioperative Medicine might be what it's called in the future, but people don't stop calling it the Royal College of Anaesthetists.
And most of the time we call it the college,
exactly, or the RCOA. Paul,
and I think also, of course, I would never stop calling myself an anaesthetist. I'm very proud of our specialty.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've always believed, really from day one, that the very best anaesthetists or anaesthesiologists are good doctors first of all. I mean, the technical skills and the application of anaesthesia for the surgical patient is crucially important, highly complex, and requires a lot of training. But equally, we are also doctors in the more general sense, and with that we need to integrate patients' comorbidity and risk of complications and all the rest of it that goes into what we now think of as perioperative medicine is, I think, a key components of a good anaesthetist. So I've been listening to what Mike's been saying around, I guess, the core training really of the specialty, and how perioperative medicine is an essential large part of that. And I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I certainly don't think that will change.
Yeah.
I think our specialty will incorporate a lot of perioperative medicine as it has in the past and will in the future.
But the core, right to the core of it, as we keep discussing, we're not going to lose sight of the provision of world-class anaesthesia in the operating theatre operating room, right, mate?
I completely agree. It is the essential skill at the heart of our specialty, but I guess there is a distinction between being the individual who one-to-one technically provides that, and the individual who leads, manages and deals with the emergencies on that. And my hunch is that the economics, the combination of non-physician providers and technology will push us in a direction whereby we're no longer one-to-one, and therefore we reshape our self-image as anaesthetists or anaesthesiologists.
Joel, last comments, because the noise is picking up behind us because we're getting ready to go back in for our second day at Anaesthesia 2018.
All I can say is I think the future looks bright. Our college certainly includes large components of perioperative medicine in our training. The curriculum was redeveloped a few years ago and is currently being redeveloped, so perioperative medicine is really taught from the beginning of anaesthesia training right up until fellowship, and will continue to be taught in that way with extra qualifications available where required. But I think really I see the aim of perioperative medicine in the future is to be inclusive and not exclusive. And if we put all of our heads together, I think we can achieve the goal of improving patient care.
Excellent, thank you. And Paul, very briefly, what might we see next from the international group?
I think the next step really is to agree on a governance structure so that we can ensure that the integrity of what the curriculum will be can be delivered, or if the providers who want to come into this space, that it's done at a standard that I think we all agree is satisfactory. And with that, of course, in consideration of how we would recognise that sort of training in different parts of the world.
Brilliant. So Paul, Joel, Mike, thank you very much indeed. We're going to go back into the main meeting now, Anaesthesia 2018, the international meeting of the Royal College of Anaesthetists.
Thanks for downloading and listening to Top Med Talk. Don't forget to find us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, even got our own YouTube channel. Whichever your favourite social media feed is, we're bound to be there. Find us. Also, subscribe to this podcast so that you never miss an episode. And make sure you go to the Top Med Talk website, topmedtalk.com, and get on board with the email updates. Oh, whilst you're at it as well, I suggest you download our entire back catalogue. We're categorising it at the moment. We're having a little look through it. It may not always be in the form that you currently find it. So if you get your hard drive ready for a full-on download via the website perhaps, or perhaps through your podcatcher. Oh, and if you fancy meeting us, why not go to the website edpom.org/meetings. Our next big event is EdPom USA, the Dallas Masters Course, a perioperative care practicum. Have a look for details of that and some of the other meetings coming up across the next year. edpom.org/meetings.